Alrighty, guys, welcome to another episode of the Team Member Perspective Podcast Show. I am your host, Colter, and today we're going to talk about follow-up. Follow-up is so important, and I think it is one piece of what we do as team members that is overlooked far too often. So, guys, we are in a follow-up business. Your ability to follow up and follow up effectively will directly correlate to how many policies you sell. The sooner that you understand that, the sooner you can get your production to the next level. It is a very important piece of what we do. And so I want to talk about follow-up and really why it is that follow-up is so important. Many of you know I came from the door-to-door industry, and follow-up in that type of a space is much different than it is here in insurance. And I think the more that we get to know our customers and get to know what they're thinking, okay, what's going on the stage of their mind throughout the day, right? When they call us, when we pitch them a life insurance policy, what are they thinking about? What is going on in their lives throughout the day? I think the more that we understand and try to understand how they're thinking, the more effective that we can be in our follow-ups. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about why follow-up is even important. I know that it's something that I've had to learn to do and to do effectively, right? And I think there's more to just following up. I think we need to start to follow up effectively and make sure that we're very intentional on what we are including in our follow-ups to get to that next level. So first of all, why is follow-up important? Well, I'll tell you, people are busy. Okay. And because people are busy, they're not thinking about the life insurance conversation you had with them last Monday, right? They've got family, they've got kids, they've got sporting events, they've got their own jobs and dealing with, everything in life. There's so much going on that if we don't remind them, they're going to forget. Okay. And so a common issue I think I see with team members is that they're either one, not following up, or two, they're leaving too much space in between each follow-up, okay? I personally feel that a week is too long for the customer because, like I said, they're busy. They've got a lot going on in their lives, and odds are they're going to forget. And so when you call them a week later, like, oh, Colter, things have gotten just so busy, we haven't had a chance to talk about it, right? If you've heard that from your customers, then you know how frustrating that can be, right? We start to feel as a salesperson like we're babysitting, and no one likes to feel like that, right? But I think we kind of do that to ourselves because of the space that we're putting in between each follow-up, okay? And so I personally feel that a week is too long, and so how often should we be following up? I think this can depend on you and even the customer, but I think a general rule of thumb that you should follow is follow up with your customer every 2 to 3 days, okay? Stop waiting a week to follow up with them because they're going to forget. They're not going to remember, and you're going to get the same answer every single time. Oh, Colter, we got too busy. I forgot, right? And so instead of waiting that full week, follow up and try every 2 to 3 days. And I know that will help you start to write more policies because you're keeping it top of mind for your customer, and they're actually going to talk to their husband, to their wife, or just think about it and make a decision. But I think that's important, and understand that people are not thinking about the insurance conversation you had with them last week or even 2 weeks ago. Okay. So you've got to keep it top of mind. And I think we all know that, right? But I think sometimes we don't think it through because we have these limiting beliefs or beliefs that we've created for ourselves as to why we're not going to follow up, right? Well, Colter, I don't want to follow up with them so much because I don't want to bug them, right? I don't want to be viewed as that pushy insurance salesperson. Like, I just don't want to bug them. Okay, that's fair. I think another reason could be that we just simply forget, right? We, as team members in the insurance space, have a lot to do, right? And a lot to manage. And so sometimes I think we just forget. We don't want to bug our customers. We forget. Sometimes I think that we just don't even know how to follow up, right? And because we don't know how to follow up, we have these things top of mind. It's like, oh, I'm not going to follow up because I just don't know how to. I don't know what I'm going to say, right? And so maybe we just don't want to feel dumb or look dumb in front of our customers. I think that's another thing that maybe gets in our way from following up. Think about that for yourself, right? Ask yourself the question, what keeps me from following up with my customers? And answer those questions for yourselves. And you're going to find out what is preventing you from following up. Okay, maybe it is you just are forgetting. Okay, and so if that's you and you're forgetting, what can you do to remember to follow up with them, right? Maybe you put time blocks on your calendar. That's something that I use every single week. That's how I stay organized. Maybe you put it in your phone. Maybe you write it on a sticky note. I don't know, right? But if you know that you're just forgetting, you can now make plans to get past that and start remembering to follow up. Okay. Maybe you feel like you just don't want to bug your customer, right? You don't want to call them and call them and call them and call them and call them, because in your mind, if you do that, they're going to get frustrated with you and they're going to, be annoyed that you're calling so much. Okay. And I think, if we look about why we're not following up as team members, I think that's probably the biggest reason, is that we just don't want to be salespeople, right? We don't want to come across like that with our customers. A belief about salespeople is that they're pushy, right? And then they just don't leave you alone. And so if you can relate to that negative self-talk going on in your mind, here's something that I've implemented for myself that allows me to not even feel like that. I don't even think like that anymore, which is so great. It's awesome. And so what I've done is I strictly have just kind of taken a few steps back and thought to myself, why would I feel like a salesperson, or what about my follow-up and calling them would make them feel like that? And I think it's just a lack of communication, right? If you properly communicate on the front end, like, Mr. Customer, today is Monday. I'm going to call you on Wednesday to see what your thoughts are on this. Is that going to give you enough time to talk with your spouse, right? And so just tell them when you're going to follow up with them next. Communicate that with them. And as long as they tell you, yes, Colter, you can give me, today's Monday, Wednesday would be plenty of time. Looking forward to your call, right? All of a sudden, there's a mutual communication between me and the customer. So number one, they know when I'm going to follow up with them next. And so when I call them, it's not a surprise to them. So they can't really be annoyed, be frustrated with me. And number two, which I think is sometimes more important, is it creates urgency with your customer, right? Because they know, okay, in 2 days, Colter's going to be calling me. I've got to go talk to my wife about this, right? So it creates some sort of urgency. And I see that customers, when I call them back, they've actually done what they told me they were going to do, and have come to some sort of decision, or maybe even have questions for me around it. Okay. And so if you feel like you don't want to bug your customers because you don't want to call them too much, then just tell them when you're going to follow up with them next. And you will see that that will help you to not feel that way anymore, right? And that has been something that's been absolutely pivotal for me to finding success and consistent success with following up with prospects, okay? And so just tell them, communicate with them that you're going to follow up with them on this day, and make sure that's okay with them, okay? And so we've talked about, the fact of maybe we just forget and we're not remembering to follow up. We've talked about how sometimes we don't want to bug our customers, and how we can, put some things in place to overcome those negative thoughts about what's preventing us from following up. Now let's talk a little bit about how to follow up effectively, okay? Because I think this is very important as well, and something that we need to work on and keep top of mind, and just get better, okay? And so let's first of all, if you guys don't know by now, I absolutely love to know what's going on in our customers' minds. I like to know what they're thinking and how they're feeling, because I feel like that really gives me an edge. Helps me really know how I can help that specific customer best, or customers in general, by just knowing what they're thinking, right? I think we can develop awareness and start to understand our customers more by understanding what they're thinking, okay? During certain parts of their lives, or, an event when they purchase a vehicle, like what's going on in the customer's minds. That's been something that I feel like has allowed me to have an advantage in doing this, is understanding customers, okay? And so let's talk about the word follow-up. If I have a car salesman that, I met over the weekend, I went to the dealership, test drove some cars, spent some time there, but didn't make a decision. And then the following week, that car salesman's calling me and saying, "Hey, Colter, I'm just following up with you." What's going on in my mind when I hear that from him or her, right? Well, I'll tell you, I feel like the word follow up, no one wants to be followed up with, right? No one wants to be sold to. Avoid the word follow up, because your customers don't want to be followed up with, because they don't want to be sold to, right? If you think about this example, this is something I heard from a TikTok recently of a solar salesman. He explained that people just inherently do not want to engage with salespeople. And he gave an example of you going into, let's say, a mall, and let's just say buckle, okay? You are going to the mall to buy a pair of buckled jeans, okay? So first of all, you know exactly what you're going to buckle to buy, okay? And so you drive to the mall, you park your car, you're walking in, and you break the barrier of getting into the buckle store. So you're in, and all of a sudden, that buckle rep is like, "Hey, how you doing? What can I help you with? What are you looking for today?" Right? And you say, "I'm just browsing." Okay? So why is it that you know exactly what you're going into that store to buy and look for? That even knowing that, why is it that you're telling that rep, that retail rep, that you're just browsing? Why do we do that? Right? Think about that. Why do we do that? And it's because we don't want to engage with salespeople. We don't want to have that weird resistance between you and that rep of, maybe them pushing you to buy these pair of pants when you just want to make the decision on your own, okay? But it's ultimately because we just do not want to engage with salespeople. We don't want to be sold to, okay? And so understanding that really helps us know how we can position ourselves in a way to where we're not going to be viewed that way. Because listen, if that's how we feel about engaging with salespeople and that we don't want to, people, our customers, our prospects are going to innately feel that way towards us as insurance sales professionals, right? And so they're going to view us in that same way, okay? And so how can we position ourselves in a way to where we can ease some of those feelings for the customer or not come off as a salesperson? Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to avoid the word follow up altogether, right? We're not following up with our customers. Get that out of your mind, right? Because no one wants to be followed up with. We don't want to be sold to, okay? And so let's avoid the word follow up. Instead, what are some things that we can say when we call our customers? Well, or text them, right? You could say, "Hey, John, tried to reach you a few times. Where should we go from here?" All right, that's a great follow-up phrase that you can use maybe in a text message, right? And so you notice that you never hear the word follow up there, right? And so maybe you're calling your customer instead of saying, "Hey, Mr. Customer, I'm just calling. I just want to follow up with you." Like, just think about that. How does that feel, right? If someone that was trying to sell you something did that, like, how are you feeling, right? And that's my point, that once you can think like that and think of how you're going to feel in that same situation, you can know how to position yourself in a more effective way, okay? So the one that I just gave, hey, John, tried to reach you a few times. Where should we go from here? That is a great thing to text your customer, okay? So try that out. Another thing that I've been doing as of late that I feel like has really helped me with my customers is saying, hey, Riley, I meant to call you sooner, right? So I say, I meant to call you sooner because I want Riley to know that I'm busy. And I just don't have all of the time in the world just to call him, to follow up with him, right? I want him to know that I'm busy, okay? And so I like to say that, hey, Riley, I meant to call you sooner. I've just playing catch up all day. Anyways, what are you thinking? Okay. So instead of saying I'm calling you to follow up, you could say, hey, meant to call you sooner. What are we thinking here? Okay. And so just try to do your best to avoid the word follow up. Another replacement that I've used is touch base. Hey, I just wanted to touch base and see what you were thinking with the life insurance policy. Okay. Hey, I just wanted to reach out. Sorry, I meant to do this sooner. I've just been doing catch up all day. I've been busy. But what are we thinking with the umbrella insurance? Okay. And so step number one, or tip number one rather, I would say avoid the word follow up at all times. No one wants to be followed up to because no one wants to be sold to. Okay. Okay, so avoid the word follow-up. Now let's talk about what we should include in our follow-ups, okay? So if we think on a general scale here, we have a couple of different follow-up vehicles that we can use with our customers, right? We have the ability to call them and get on the phone with them. We can text them and we can email our customers, okay? So phone call, text, and email. We've got to talk about which vehicle are we using and when, okay? First of all, I think, in my personal opinion, you should be getting your customers on the phone as much as you possibly can for your follow-ups, okay? Because you cannot gauge tone, right, over text message or email. But on the phone, you can hear the fluctuations of their tone, which is going to give you a better feel on how they actually feel towards the policy that you're trying to write, okay? And so get your customers on the phone as much as you can because you will have more of an advantage to hear how they're saying certain things, okay? However, I personally feel that text messages are a very effective way to get your customer on the phone. Okay, same thing with emails. But personally, I like to get the customer on the phone as much as I possibly can to do my follow-up, and I will utilize text messages to get them on the phone. Okay, as for emails, I will use my email for the initial follow-up. For example, if I am pitching you life insurance, we have a great conversation over life insurance, and you say, and you don't make a decision there, so I know that I need to follow up. I am going to tell you, hey, I'm going to send you an email that's going to recap our conversation from today. That way you have that to show to your husband later tonight and tomorrow and before I call you on Wednesday, okay? And so I'm using that email as a full recap of our conversation, okay? And so here's kind of a structure of what that email looks like and all of the elements that I have in those email follow-ups, okay? And so as a recap here, this is right after you pitch a customer, okay? You have a really, really good conversation around any sort of line of insurance, but they don't buy, right? They say, I need to talk to my husband or I need to think about it. They're not essentially buying right then and there. This is when you will use this email follow-up, okay? So here's the structure that I use. One of the first things that I like to include in there is something personal from our conversation, right? Because if I'm on the phone with them for a while, I'm asking them about their day, about their life, an acronym that I like to keep top of mind is FORM. Talk to them about their family, their occupation, what they like to do for fun, their recreation, and their money, right? Those will give you some talking points to get to know your customer on a personal level, so it's not just strictly business. And so in my follow-up, the first thing I like to include is something personal from our conversation. For example, I could say, hey, Mr. Customer, it was great talking with you today. I hope you enjoy your weekend with your family in Salt Lake, right? Because maybe we talked about them going to Salt Lake, right? I will bring that, and that's the first thing that I'm going to put in my email, okay? The second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to recap the full conversation that we had, okay? And what do I mean by recap? Okay, what does that entail? Well, it's going to go over the full presentation that we had with the customer, okay? And so if I'm talking to the customer and we've transitioned to life insurance and we go into this life insurance conversation, in a sales conversation, I would have talked to the customer about the problem or the risk that they face by not having life insurance, what the solution to that risk is, as well as the benefits. And so in my email, I'm going to recap that presentation. And I'm going to say, hey, Mr. Customer, based on our conversation, it looks like there's a gap in your financial future that, heaven forbid, if you passed away prematurely, there's a gap, right? Your family's not going to have the income that you have now. And so because of that, we've quoted $1.5 million in a term policy for you that would replace your income for the next 15 years. That way, your family doesn't have to struggle to pay the bills if you pass away prematurely. We can have the mortgage paid off, the loans on the cars, yada, 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 right? So I'm helping them remember, hey, look, here's the risk. Here's the problem based on our conversation that you face by not having this in place. The solution is, hey, we've quoted $1.5 million for you here, and here's what it does, right? It's going to replace your income for the next 15 years, right? Help them remember that conversation because that's what made it personal to them, right? And then do not skimp on the benefits, okay? We say, here's your risk. Solution is, I've got this policy that we can get you that's going to cover and protect you here. And here are the benefits, right? And in thinking benefits, why would it be important for the customer to get that in place? Well, that way your family doesn't have to struggle to pay the bills if you are not around, right? If you pass away. That way they don't have to struggle to make the mortgage payment, the car payment. They can keep the house. They don't have to have this additional financial burden on top of losing you. Those are the benefits. So tell them and do not skimp on those things. Because guys, our customers, they're going to buy off of the benefits. How is their life going to change by having this coverage in place? Those are the benefits. And so after we've given something a little personal in that email, we're going to say, hey, based on our conversation today, boom, we're going to recap the presentation. Here's your problem. Here's a solution to your problem, and here are your benefits. This is why you should do it, okay? So after we've done that, and guys, I cannot reiterate enough, do not skimp. I know as team members, we've got a lot going on throughout the day, and sometimes it's just easy to just send the quotes and not really spend some time writing out kind of what we talked about. But from experience, guys, start to work smarter. Do this and you're going to write more policies, okay? Your response rate's going to go up. And when you call the customer back, right, they will actually understand what it does for them, okay? Because here's a common thing that I think we run into as team members. Our customers want to take some time in hopes that they're making the right decision, especially with life insurance, right? And insurance in general. And so one of the things that we'll hear a lot is, hey, I like this idea, but I just want to talk to my husband about it, okay? And so you say, okay, yeah, sounds great. You should talk to your husband. Today's Monday. I'm going to call you on Wednesday. Is that enough time to follow up with you? Okay. And let's say they're like, okay, yes, cool. And after that, you just send the quotes over. You don't recap the conversation that you had with them. You don't go through the problem, solution, benefits. You just say, hey, here's $1.5 million in a 20-year life insurance policy. Your premium's $130 a month for both of you. Let me know what you think. Enter, right? Think about what the next steps for that customer are. They're going to open that email. She's going to open up that email with her husband, and her husband's going to be like, oh man, no, I don't need life insurance. I've got it through work, right? he's just going to see that we offered him life insurance, but he doesn't really see how it is specific to their needs. He doesn't see how it's personal to them. Okay. And that's a big deal. Okay. And so if you're just going to just send the quotes over and say, hey, let me know what you think, and you're not going to recap that conversation, it's not going to be as effective, right? But imagine if you do recap that conversation, you spend some time, spend maybe 5 more minutes constructing a good follow-up email. Now think about that, wife taking this to her husband, and all of a sudden the husband can read and say, okay, hey, we'd recommend having 1.5 million in place because it would replace your husband's income for the next 15 years, pays off your mortgage, does all this. That way you guys don't have to struggle financially and struggle with these bills if anything terrible like that happened. The home's paid off, the cars are paid off, and you can actually have time to mourn for the loss without having to have such a huge financial burden, right? All of a sudden, that husband can be caught up to that conversation that we spent a lot of time with the wife on, right? And he can get caught up to speed and see exactly why 1.5 million is what we recommended, and it's all of a sudden personal, right? And all of a sudden he can see the benefits of, holy crap, yeah, like if I pass away, I don't want my family to even think about struggling with these bills, right? I want them to be set up. And so you can see the power of having an effective follow-up. So they're going to be able to be caught up on the conversation, but also they're going to remember the conversation that you had with them, right? Because going back to the beginning, our customers are busy. They have a lot going on in their lives, and they are not thinking about the life insurance conversation that you had with them a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Okay, so we need to constantly remember them and help them remember what is in it for them. Okay. The third part that I include in the follow-up is a quote. Okay, the numbers. Keep it very simple, right? And there's 2 strategies that you can do here. One, you can just say, hey, if we do this $1.5 million of coverage for both of you, it's $130 a month. Okay, just tell them what it costs. Or 2, you can tell them what it would bring their total monthly bill with you to. For example, so if we do add this to your plan, it would bring your monthly bill for everything, your auto, your home, right? Life insurance, from $200 a month to $330 a month. Okay? So you quote them. Put the quote in your follow-up. And then the fourth part that I would include is just helping them remember that you're going to be calling them on Wednesday, and do a call to action. Hey, make sure you talk to so-and-so about this because on Wednesday, I'm going to shoot you a call. Talk then. Okay. So as a recap, for a couple things that we should be including in our email follow-ups. Number 1, include something personal from your conversation. That goes a long way. Number 2, recap your presentation with your customer. Go through and help them remember the problem, solution, and benefits. Number 4, include the quote. Okay? And number, I think 4 or 5 here, do some sort of call to action and remind them when you're going to be calling them next. Okay? So this will work wonders for you. Okay? It works really, really well. And the cool thing is when you create this email follow-up and you've spent some time, going through that, not skimping, all of a sudden that is a great tool that can become your follow-up. So then when you call your customer, you say, hey, so-and-so, did you have some time to look at that email I sent you? Or did you and your husband get a chance to look through that email, right? That becomes your follow-up, and so it becomes very easy to follow up, okay? And then follow up them every 2 to 3 days, or if you're like me, until they tell you no, okay? And if you even want to take it a step further, which is what I personally do, if they tell you no, put them out on your calendar for another 6 months, okay? Because guys, people's lives change, okay? Their needs change. Think about your life, right? 6 months ago, is it the same life that you have now? Or if things changed, right? Maybe some of you, it's pretty close to being the same. But guys, people's lives change. And so for us to think, oh, I've talked to him one time, I'm good, I think we're kind of hitting ourselves in the foot here, or shooting ourselves in the foot because people's lives change, right? And they're not thinking about the life insurance conversation you guys had 2 years ago, right? They don't remember that, okay? And so follow-up is so important, right? But more importantly, effective follow-up is so important, okay? And so I am very confident that if you will just find ways to make your follow-up process better, you're going to write more policies, okay? And one last thing that I'm going to end on that will really illustrate this whole point of why follow-up is important is the marketing rule of 7, okay? So the marketing rule of 7 states that customers need to see your brand at least 7 times before they commit to a purchase decision. 7 times, okay? Same thing goes with this. In order for your customer to make a buying decision, sometimes they may need to be reminded up to 7 times before they make a decision, okay? And so think about that, right? Our customers are busy. They're not thinking about the life insurance conversation you had with them. They're busy with their own lives, so you need to follow up. But more importantly, learn to follow up more effectively than you are right now, okay? And I guarantee you'll start to write more policies. There's a lot of policies that are left on the table from team members that could be easily closed if they would just apply these follow-up principles and get better at their follow-ups. Well, appreciate you guys. Follow-up's so important. I can't talk about it enough. We are in a follow-up business, so take it seriously and go make it happen this week. We will see you guys next time.